Moving on, number 7, in quadrilateral ABCD, angles B and C both measure 90 degrees. What is AB? So we're trying to figure out how long AB is. Oops. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is, if you notice, I don't give you any angle measures and only give you one side, so we can't use trigonometry. But if you look at this top triangle, I do give you two sides of that right triangle, so we can first find out how long CA is, and then work backwards and figure out what AB is. So the first thing we want to do is figure out how long CA is. We're going to use Pythagorean's theorem. So 5 squared plus CA squared is going to equal 13 squared. And you do your math, so 25 plus CA squared equals 169. You subtract and you get that CA squared equals 144, square root, and you know that CA is 12. So that's the first thing you had to do. So now if you look at this triangle, now we know what two sides are, so we're going to use Pythagorean's theorem a second time and figure out how long AB is. So the second thing you have to do is 10 squared plus AB squared equals 12 squared. Do all your fun math and you get 100 plus AB squared equals 144. Subtract from both sides and you get that AB squared equals 44. And I said leave your answers in simplified radical form. So that means that you get to do the factor tree. So two numbers that multiply together to be 44 are 4 and 11. And then you could do 2 and 2. And now we have our prime numbers, and we have a pair of 2's that go out together, and we have our lone or 11 that stays inside and does geometry homework. Yay! So your answer should be 2 radical 11. Okay. Number 11. Draw a right triangle where tan x equals 5 over 12. They're actually not going to ask you to draw a triangle. It's multiple choice test, but it's, they want to make sure you know how to draw this. So draw a right triangle, put an x anywhere. Doesn't matter, as long as it's not the right angle. Tan compares the opposite to the adjacent. Again, if you don't have this memorized by now, it's so Toa! So tan compares opposite and adjacent. So that means that this top number is going to be opposite of angle x. So 5 has to be here. And 12 is adjacent, not the hypotenuse, adjacent, touching it. So your triangle should look like this. Okay, number 12 is starred because this is important. CP, I haven't taught you this yet. Honors, we went over this briefly one day. But whenever you see a cosine squared or a sine squared, you have to have this formula memorized. Sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals 1. And they tell you what cosine squared is, 64 over 100. So what you're going to do is you're just going to plug that into this equation. So sine squared x plus 64 over 100 equals 1. And then what you're going to do is you want to get sine squared x by itself because that's what they're asking you for. So you have to, the opposite of adding 64 over 100 is subtracting 64 over 100. So you subtract 64 over 100 from each side. And we won't have a calculator. So some people are freaking out right now saying, oh my gosh, Ms. Broyles, this is a fraction. What do you want from me here? Well, I'm not asking you to do magic, but I am asking you to remember that 100, that when you're adding and subtracting fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So 1 is going to be the same thing as 100 over 100. So we have 100 over 100, that's 1, minus the 64 over 100. And you leave the denominators the same, so our answer is going to have a denominator of 100, and then 100 minus 64 is going to be 36. So 36 over 100 is your answer. You can keep it like that. They might ask you to reduce it on your test, in which case you could divide both by 2 if you want to. But I don't think they're going to ask that from you guys. I think that should be fine. 36 over 100. Okay. Number 13. A 10-foot ladder is, just double checking. Yeah, I don't think they're going to ask you to reduce it. Okay, number 13. A 10-foot ladder is leaning against a building, making an 80-degree angle with the ground. Write an equation to determine how high x up the building the ladder reaches. So we get to draw our fun picture. Here's my ladder. Yes. Perfect. It's up against the building. Makes a right angle. The building and the ground make a right angle. And it makes an 80-degree angle with the floor. So this is what it looks like, and we want to know how far up the building it goes. Okay. Oh, and it's a 10-foot ladder. So this is all the information we have. If you notice, in respect to the 80 degrees, we have an opposite side and we have a hypotenuse. So we have to use, which trig function uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. So our equation is going to be sine of the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. And then they want you to solve for x. So the opposite of dividing by 10 is multiplying by 10. So your answer, they're not going to ask you to actually solve for it quite yet. It'll be multiple choice, and this will be an answer, obviously. So your answer will look like this. That's it. That's all they want from you for that problem. Okay. Let's see. Go away. I did 7. Okay. Number 8. Find DE. Keep your answer in simplified radical form. So if you notice here, we have two sides of a triangle, and we don't have any angles. So we can't use trigonometry. We're going to have to use Pythagorean's theorem. Almost done. Okay, so for number 8, we're going to have to use Pythagorean's theorem. Can't use trig because we don't have an angle. So 3 squared plus 13 squared equals DE squared. And we don't have a calculator, but we do know that 3 times 3 is 9, and that 13 times 13 is 169. And if you add them up, I think we get 178. And you could do the factor tree if you wanted to. I mean, you will have to do it on the test. But this number actually isn't going to break down, because if you divide it, you get 2 and 89. And you can't reduce 89. These are both prime numbers. So radical 178 is your final answer. Done. Didn't need a calculator. Okay, which equation, for number 9, which equation can be used to find x? Here we do have angle measures. We don't have two side lengths. We have to use trigonometry. And notice, again, it's going to be multiple choice, and they're going to give you equations that look like this. So you can just go down the order if you want to. Sine of 20 equals 4 over x. Well, this is the hypotenuse, and we don't know anything about it. So we can't use, if you remember, SOHCAHTOA. We don't know anything about the hypotenuse. So that means we can't use sine, and we can't use cosine. Can't use these guys, because we don't know anything about the hypotenuse. So we have to use tan. So right away we know it's not A or B. We have to use tan. Let's see if it's tan 20. Tan stands for opposite over adjacent. So opposite of 20 is 4, and the adjacent is x. So tan 20 equals opposite over adjacent. This is the correct answer. Let's just double check D though. Tan of 70 equals opposite would be x, and adjacent would be 4. And if you notice, it flipped it. So that is not the correct answer. Number 14, Jocelyn is standing on level ground 400 feet from the base of the Eiffel Tower. I know, beautiful picture, right? The tower is 1,063, I don't know why I wrote 63 feet tall. I Googled it. That's actually correct. And obviously my drawings are never, drawn to scale. We want to write an equation to figure out what angle this is. So if you look, this is the opposite side of the angle, and this is the adjacent side, so we'll have to use tan. Tan of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. And that's all they want from you. You don't have to solve yet. Okay, that's it. We're done. Okay, number 15. Anthony, whose eye level is 6 feet off the ground and who is standing 40 feet away from a Ferris wheel. This Ferris wheel, I know. Not as good as my Eiffel Tower. Okay, he must look at a 50-degree angle to see the top of the wheel. How tall is the Ferris wheel? Round to the nearest hundredths. So this one they're going to want you to actually solve. Okay, first of all, what you're going to do is you're going to do 2 steps. You're going to figure out how long this part of the Ferris wheel is. Again, not drawn to scale. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add the 6 feet that Anthony is. So that's your 2 parts. So first of all, solve for x. And we'll figure out what part of the Ferris wheel is. So to solve for x, if this is 40, then this has got to be 40 as well. So we have, in respect to the angle, we have an opposite and we have an adjacent. So we have to do tan of 50 equals x over 40. And they tell us in here what tan of 50 is. I'm not asking you to memorize this stuff. So the opposite of dividing by 40 is multiplying by 40. So we're going to do 40 times tan 50, and we know tan 50 is 1.1918. So we're going to have to multiply 0.1918. So you get to do old school multiplication. If you don't remember how to do old school multiplication, please go to tutoring before we take the DSAT. Any math teacher can explain to you how to do long school multiplication, old school multiplication, excuse me. So you're going to come out to get x equals, because we're not using calculator, right? Comes out to be 47.67 feet, rounded to the nearest hundredths. Once you have that, though, again, the second thing is you have to add the 6 feet that Anthony is. So you're going to take 47.67, add the 6 to it, and your final answer should be 53.67 feet tall. All right? Okay. I'm going to pause it here because in the next one I'll actually explain it in a little bit more detail how to do the old school multiplication, just in case you're too scared to ask somebody else.